Now, even as we evolve our institutions and drive creative new partnerships, let me be clear. Certain principles of our international system are sacrosanct.
This is my video update from Nicosia, Cyprus on this Wednesday morning, September the 20th. Let's talk about some news. And before we get to the UN General Assembly speeches from Biden and Zelensky, let's talk about an article that dropped via Breitbart yesterday. A well-timed article from Breitbart talking about Gonzalo Lira, and the title from this article via Breitbart is exclusive. American citizen journalist sitting in Ukraine prison. State Department confirms as Biden begs for billions more to protect Ukrainian freedom. So obviously this article was published to coincide with Zelensky's trip to the United States, his meeting with Biden, and their push, Biden and Zelensky, their push to get Congress to approve another $24 billion for the Zelensky regime. And this article calls out the hypocrisy, I guess you can say, the criminality of having an American citizen imprisoned in Ukraine, a citizen journalist, a YouTuber imprisoned in Ukraine, while Zelensky is in the United States, along with the President of the United States, looking for $24 billion as they run around New York, D.C., the halls of Congress, talking about democracy, human rights, freedom of speech, Western values. That's basically what this article is aiming for. As far as any new information as to what is going on with Gonzalo, there's not really any new info that Breitbart is reporting in this post. But Breitbart did contact the State Department on Tuesday, and they asked about Gonzalo Lira. And this is what the U.S. State Department said, and I quote, "We are aware of the detention of Mr. Lira in Ukraine. We take our role in assisting U.S. citizens abroad seriously and are providing all appropriate assistance. We are monitoring the situation but have no further comment at this time. We reiterate our message that U.S. citizens should not travel to Ukraine due to the active armed conflict." So basically, the U.S. State Department is saying nothing. They are saying that they are aware of what is going on with Mr. Lira. But we all know that if the U.S. State Department really did want to free Gonzalo, it would take one phone call and probably 20 seconds for the State Department to tell the Zelensky regime, release this American citizen, and he would be released, like, instantly. But the U.S. State Department is not doing that. Breitbart also talks about the Ukraine military spokesperson and their recent comments. Breitbart writes, "Lira's case has come into focus after apparent Ukrainian military spokesperson Sarah Ashton Cirillo claimed last week to have given testimony against Lira while claiming to have met with him personally. Ashton Cirillo asserted that he was in good physical and mental health during their meeting. The transgender spokesperson has come under criticism from U.S. Senator J.D. Vance after declaring on social media that Russian propagandists would be hunted down by the Ukrainian government. So, as Zelensky is in the United States asking Congress, asking America for 24 billion, another 24 billion, on top of the 100, 200, 300, 400, who knows how many hundreds of billions the U.S. has poured into Ukraine, not over the past year and a half, but over the last 10 years. You have Zelensky now in the United States asking for another 24 billion. And as he is asking for this money, we have Breitbart reporting that this Ukraine spokesperson is talking about hunting down journalists. Those Western values. Those Western values, huh? Democracy, human rights, free speech. Give Ukraine another 24 billion so they can talk about hunting down journalists. And actually, I saw via Twitter that Jack Posobiec, he has been added to the Mirotvorets kill list as well. So that's Ukraine for you. That is what is happening with Ukraine. So a very interesting article from Breitbart, and they talked about J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance, sure enough, he has grasped on to the Ukraine narrative, and he is tearing it apart. Good on you, Senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance. He is absolutely demolishing the Zelensky-Biden Ukraine narrative. He tweeted out this yesterday: Ukraine is holding an American journalist hostage. This is a disgrace. And why is the Biden admin opening up the checkbook without any accountability, without any audit, without any tracking of the funds, requests from various House members and members of the Senate to audit where the funds are going, but those requests have been denied. And J.D. Vance is asking, why is Biden opening up his checkbook to give money to Ukraine without any accountability as they hold an American journalist in prison? And for what? For speaking badly about Zelensky, for criticizing Zelensky. That's why they have him in prison. And keep in mind, the money that was given to Ukraine over the past year and a half that went to the Ministry of Defense under the control of former Minister Reznikov, that Minister of Defense and that Ministry of Defense in Ukraine that was getting all this money, all the hundreds of billions, a couple of weeks ago, the collective West decided to let us all know that that Ministry of Defense in Ukraine is corrupt. Quite an incredible revelation, huh? All the hundreds of billions that we've sent to the Ministry of Defense, well, it's a corrupt Ministry of Defense. So we need a new Minister of Defense. But Zelensky told CNN, Fareed Zakaria, he said that Reznikov, while the Ministry of Defense is corrupt, Reznikov, he said, he wasn't corrupt. It was everyone else in the Ministry of Defense. And I think you've even now had the Deputy Defense Minister of Ukraine, Anya Malyar, I believe is her name, Malyar. I know it's Malyar. Anyway, she has, from what I understand, she's been dismissed as well. And I said in a video a couple of days ago from Larnaca discussing Malyar and some of the statements that she makes, like Ukraine has captured Andrevka, Ukraine has captured Rabotinya. She always makes these statements about Ukraine capturing the same 3 or 4 villages over and over and over again. I said that anything coming out of Malyar's mouth is nonsense. And sure enough, that is what has proven to be fact. What she says is indeed nonsense, and it's so crazy, the statements that she makes about Ukraine capturing all these villages over and over again, that even the Ukraine Ministry of Defense, from what I understand, they've dismissed her. So let's see here. Vance, he also tweeted this. At least his office, his press office tweeted this, and this was an appearance on Fox News. Senator J.D. Vance slams taxpayer-funded Ukrainian spokesperson for issuing death threats. Are we really funding a military that is threatening the free speech rights of people who disagree with the Ukrainian war? Why are our paid guns threatening the rights of Americans? Why are our paid guns threatening the rights of Americans? Mike Lee, I believe senator from Utah, Mike Lee, he said that Biden's State Department is providing all assistance, not to the U.S. citizen journalist held by Ukraine, but to Ukraine. Whose side is Biden on when the interests of U.S. citizens run contrary to those of Zelensky? And this was in reply to a tweet from Richard Grenell, where he said that Ukraine is holding a U.S. citizen journalist against his will. Why? Once again, in reference to this Breitbart article. J.D. Vance, actually, he also tweeted about the Konstantinovka missile strike, and the New York Times' article, which reveals the truth about the missile strike at this market in Ukraine-controlled Donetsk, which killed 17 people. And J.D. Vance, he tweeted, the American media is an arm of Ukrainian propaganda, and he has a screenshot of the, or a retweet of the New York Times article, where the New York Times has decided to tell the truth about what happened in Konstantinovka. Keep in mind that, I talked about this in my video yesterday, that what the New York Times is saying in this article about this missile strike is that Zelensky, the Ukraine military, fired missiles at its own people. This is an area in Ukraine. It's in Donetsk, but it's in the Ukraine-controlled Donetsk. And basically what the New York Times is saying is that this was an accident. They say this was an accident, but it is saying that Ukraine fired missiles at its own people, at its own market, and killed 17, 18 people. That is what the New York Times is admitting to. While Zelensky is in the United States, in DC and at the UN, looking for another 24 billion. So let's now talk about Zelensky and Biden and their UN speeches. Biden, I don't really have much to say about Biden's speech at the UN. Bunch of cliches. He really doesn't say anything. He mumbles, he bumbles, he tries to keep to the script, but he can't do that anymore. He can't even read a script anymore. So I mean, Biden, his speech is just really a non-event. A speech from the American president is now it's just looked over. No one cares anymore. It's just it's a non-issue. It's just not important because you're just getting this guy mumbling and bumbling nonsense. There's no real meat to what he is saying. There's no real meaning to his speeches. It's just verbal diarrhea. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Anyway, I apologize for the for using such a graphic word to explain what's coming out of Biden's mouth. But anyway, that's all I have to say about Biden's speech. Zelensky's speech was interesting because Zelensky's in full-on panic mode. He is panicking. His speech looked like a man speaking in front of, I would say, a pretty much empty General Assembly, to be quite honest, and a man fighting for his very existence. Not the existence of his country, not the existence of his people, for his own existence. That is how I would categorize Zelensky's speech, and he said a lot of crazy stuff. I mean, a lot of crazy stuff. He actually started to talk about climate change at one point during the speech. That's how desperate he is. He started talking about climate change, trying to pander to the climate change ideologues. that's how desperate Zelensky has become. Of course, he didn't mention the blowing up of Nord Stream, which was an ecological disaster. But anyway, he wanted to blame pretty much Russia for climate change. That was pretty much his speech. Everything was blaming Russia for everything. He talked about how Russia is trying to swallow up Belarus. He talked about how Russia destroyed Syria. He was just blaming Russia for everything. I mean, for everything. You name it, it was Russia's fault. And he also talked about, what else did he talk about? He talked about how Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons, and it gave up its nuclear weapons, and it thought that Russia would act responsibly as Russia took over the nuclear weapons from Ukraine. And he's like, we were duped, we were proven wrong, and he was just talking all kinds of just nonsense. I've talked about the whole nuclear weapons issue with Ukraine. I've talked about it on multiple occasions in past videos. Just briefly, Ukraine never had nuclear weapons. The Soviet Union had nuclear weapons. And those nuclear weapons, you could say they were in Ukraine, they were in Kazakhstan, they were in Belarus. But Moscow, the power center of the Soviet Union, they always maintained control of this nuclear arsenal, which was on the territory of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union disintegrated, Russia was the successor state, and everybody, including the United States, everyone decided that it was best if whatever nuclear weapons were on the various territories of the Soviet Union, that those nuclear weapons fall under the control of the successor state, which was Russia. A very smart, pragmatic decision, because you don't want 4 or 5 countries all of a sudden becoming nuclear overnight. And so you have to take those nuclear weapons and put them under the control of the largest, the biggest part of the Soviet Union, which was the Russian Federation. And the Russian Federation, they had the know-how, they had the capability of safeguarding these nuclear weapons. And that's what happened, whether you're talking about nuclear weapons in Ukraine or Kazakhstan or Belarus. They all had to go back to Russia, and that was the smart thing to do. So the whole nonsense about Ukraine giving up nuclear weapons is it's stupidity. It is just pure stupidity. But that was what was coming out of Zelensky's mouth. Panic and stupidity. And then I think the most interesting part from Zelensky's speech is that he confirmed our analysis on the Duran from about 2 weeks ago, where we said that Blinken was in Kiev in order to tell Zelensky to freeze the conflict. And Zelensky said during his speech, and I quote, "I am aware of attempts to make some shady agreements behind the scenes. Evil cannot be trusted. Ask Prigozhin whether Putin's promises should be trusted. Please hear me. Let unity decide everything openly." So this statement from Zelensky This is Zelensky talking to Blinken. He's not talking to the General Assembly. He's not talking to Ukrainians. He's not talking to American citizens. He's not talking to Poland or the EU or Ursula. He's talking to Blinken and the U.S. State Department and Newland and the neocons and the Sullivans and all of the Biden White House factions that are trying to figure out what they're going to do with Project Ukraine. The neocons, they want Ukraine to continue to fight to the last Ukrainian. They don't care. While there are other parts of the Biden White House, Sullivan, who's thinking about the elections, Blinken, who is a neocon, but he's a new type of neocon. He's a neo-lib neocon. And there are guys like this who want a conflict freeze because they finally understand, after the failure of the big super duper counteroffensive, that Ukraine has lost, and they're burning through just about everything that the collective West has given them. And they're also burning through their manpower. And he understands that if we don't freeze this thing in 6 months or 9 months, maybe even sooner, maybe a little longer, the whole Project Ukraine is going to collapse. And he wants to freeze this along the lines of West Germany, Korea armistice, so that this new breed of neocons, they can buy some time. Kind of like another Minsk agreement. They feel that they can dupe Russia or pressure Russia into agreeing to this. And then they'll buy a couple of years to rebuild whatever's left of Ukraine. This is Blinken's thinking, and that was the orders that he gave Zelensky when he went to Kiev. Zelensky, you need to open up negotiations with Russia. And Zelensky is resisting. He is absolutely resisting. I wouldn't be surprised if Newland is actually talking to Zelensky, the old school neocons, if they're talking to Zelensky and they're telling Zelensky, no, you are not going to freeze this thing. You're going to keep on fighting. And so Zelensky, understanding what's best for him, for his own self-preservation, he knows that the only way he can continue to remain in power and continue to exist is if he continues fighting. So he's resisting Blinken's calls, or the Blinken faction. Let's call it the Blinken faction. He's resisting their calls for a conflict freeze and for negotiations with Russia. And that's what he was saying in this statement. He was talking to Blinken when he's saying that there are people trying to make shady deals. I mean, that was a direct attack on Blinken, which is interesting. We're going to see how this faction in the Biden White House responds to this statement from Zelensky. I think that Zelensky is in a really, really, really bad place right now. I mean, a really bad place. Anyway, that was the UN. That was a day at the UN General Assembly. Quite a clown show, if you ask me. So now let's talk about yesterday's other big event, which was Nagorno-Karabakh and Azerbaijan launching what Azerbaijan has called an anti-terrorism operation in Nagorno-Karabakh. I talked about this in my video yesterday, and we have some developments from this region, from this conflict, this new conflict in the Caucasus. And Armenia, Pashinyan, the leader of Armenia, he had a phone call with Blinken, and he is asking the United States to intervene. From what I understand, Azerbaijan is breaking through whatever defensive lines, Nagorno-Karabakh, whatever their forces had in this region. They're breaking through the defensive lines, and their goal, according to the leader of Azerbaijan, Aliyev, he said that they're not going to stop until Armenia surrenders all the weapons in this region. That's what he said Azerbaijan's stated goals are. I don't buy it. I don't think those are their stated goals. They want to absorb this region and much more. I think their goal is to absorb much of what is Armenia proper. And Pashinyan has maneuvered Armenia into this terrible position under his belief, Pashinyan's belief, that if he could somehow get Azerbaijan to take Nagorno-Karabakh and just take Nagorno-Karabakh, he was thinking that he would be able to then position Armenia as a prospective NATO, EU candidate member state. That was his thinking, and it is backfiring because Blinken, while he came out with a statement and said that Azerbaijan has to stop its operation in Nagorno-Karabakh, Blinken stopped very short of saying that the U.S. would actually do something about it. Here's Blinken's statement. Let me read it to you. And this is coming from the State Department readout. Secretary of State Anthony J. Blinken spoke with Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan today about Azerbaijan's military actions in Nagorno-Karabakh. The secretary expressed the United States' deep concern for the situation in Nagorno-Karabakh and underscored that the United States is calling on Azerbaijan to immediately cease hostilities and return to dialogue immediately. He told Prime Minister Pashinyan the United States fully supports Armenia's sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity. Now, notice that Blinken says that the United States supports Armenia's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Unfortunately for Pashinyan and for the people in Nagorno-Karabakh, Armenia's sovereignty and territorial integrity has been disconnected from Nagorno-Karabakh, and it was disconnected by Pashinyan, who himself recognized Nagorno-Karabakh as Azerbaijan sovereign territory. And therein lies the problem. Blinken's statement is in support of Armenia, but he's not saying that the United States is going to do anything with regards to Nagorno-Karabakh, because Pashinyan has maneuvered the people in this region into a situation that just it can't be resolved. It can't be resolved in their favor, because he has recognized this area as being part of Azerbaijan. And so when Blinken talks about Armenia's territorial integrity, he means Armenia's territorial integrity. He's not talking about Nagorno-Karabakh. And this is what Putin said the other day. I talked about this in my video yesterday. This is the exact point that Putin was making when he was in Vladivostok. His point was that Pashinyan has maneuvered Armenia into a position where it's impossible to mediate and to negotiate with regards to Nagorno-Karabakh, because he's recognized the area as being part of Azerbaijan. And basically, that's what the State Department is also saying in this statement. So Pashinyan, he really messed this one up. The U.S. is not going to come to the aid of the residents of Nagorno-Karabakh. It's not going to help Armenia in this situation. Russia's hands are tied. It's an impossible situation for Nagorno-Karabakh, for the people there, and for Pashinyan. There were people in Yerevan that went out to the streets and they were calling for Pashinyan to be removed. There were also people in Yerevan who went in front of the Russian embassy, and they were blaming Russia for all of this, because there was the misinformation that started to hit the interwebs, which said that Russia greenlit this operation by Azerbaijan. And Russia was quick to come out with a statement. The Foreign Ministry came out with a statement, and they said we had no idea that they were going to launch this attack when they did. I mean, everyone knew that that there was a risk that Azerbaijan was going to do this. Everyone was sounding the alarm bells. First and foremost, Putin and Russia. They were saying that this is going to lead to disaster. Pashinyan shut up That's basically what they were saying. Shut up, Pashinyan. Stop talking. You're maneuvering Nagorno-Karabakh. You're maneuvering it towards catastrophe. But he couldn't shut up. And now he doesn't have Russia. The U.S. is basically saying, not our problem. France has other stuff to deal with, like its collapsing position in Africa. This is the situation now in Armenia. Anyway, there was a photo going around Twitter of Pashinyan wearing a green shirt saying that he's hiding in a bunker. Is that photo real? Is that photo recent? Is that a recent photo or is that an old photo? If it's a recent photo, then I don't know what to say. Do we have another puppet leader in a green t-shirt? Have the script writers put together another green t-shirt scenario? God, I hope not. Elensky, he addressed the United Nations wearing a green shirt, not a t-shirt. At least he wasn't wearing a green t-shirt. He was wearing his business casual green attire as he was addressing the United Nations. What a clown, man. What a clown. Anyway, Milley, he came out with a statement, and he said that there is going to be a winter counteroffensive. That is what Milley said. He said that the Ukraine military, there's going to be a pause as the weather changes, but he said once everything freezes up and the rain stops and things get cold and frozen, he said that Ukraine is going to launch their big super duper winter offensive that offends me and you and everybody. And that was Milley's final statement, because he attended his final meeting of Ukraine's defense contact group thing, whatever it's called, where they all get together and they strategize about Project Ukraine. Milley said he's attended his last meeting of this contact group, and that's it. He said, I'm off to retire. He's off to get a position on the board of some military industrial complex company. That's what's going to happen with Milley. But he said, this is my last meeting. That's it. And before I go, I just want to say that Ukraine is going to launch a big super duper winter counteroffensive once the ground hardens up. That was Milley's statement. So what else? Let's do one more story and we'll get to our clown world. Actually, I have to go back to the United Nations. I'm not done with the UN story, with the UN news, because we had the Polish president, Mr. Walk on the Wild Side, Duda. He spoke to the media on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly, and this is what Duda said, and I quote, "It would be good for Ukraine to remember that it receives help from us, and to remember that we are also a transit country for Ukraine." This is what he told reporters on the sidelines of the United Nations in reference to the exporting of Ukraine grain to Poland, the fact that Poland will keep its embargo on Ukraine grain in place, and the news that Ukraine is going to be taking Poland to court because Poland has decided to keep its block of Ukraine grain intact. And so, given that Ukraine is going to be taking Poland to court, Duda was not happy and he fired back at Elensky, and he basically told Elensky, don't you cross us, because all the military stuff that passes to you passes through us. It gets given to you, passes through us. We are the country that is coordinating your conflict with Russia, and we can do some serious damage to your administration, Mr. Elensky. So the bromance between Duda and Elensky it looks like it has come to an end. The bromance is over. The love is gone. The love is gone between Duda and Elensky. And so for Duda to be in the United States and to say these things at the UN, you know he's been given permission to say these things. You know it. So this is another indication, another sign that Elensky's in big trouble. Poland is turning on Elensky, and Poland got the green light to make these statements to the media and to turn on Elensky, which means that Elensky's in big trouble. A lot of tennis courts in Cyprus, huh? Cyprus has a lot of tennis courts. Nice tennis courts, too. So that was Duda at the UN. And by the way, Ukraine, they said that, let me get this news here. Let me pull this up. Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Economy, Taras Kachka, said that in the coming days, the authorities will introduce an embargo on the supply of certain types of agricultural products from Poland. So Duda makes this statement at the UN. He makes this veiled threat towards Elensky at the United Nations. Poland also said that come 2024, they're going to stop all of the free services to Ukraine refugees living in Poland. So that's going to end as well. The free money, the housing, the medical, the schooling, all of that is going to come to an end in 2024. Poland also made that announcement. And in turn, Ukraine said, okay, you're going to do all this stuff to us, Poland? Well, we're going to block Polish exports into Ukraine. That is basically what the Deputy Economy Minister of Ukraine said. We are not going to allow Poland to send any of their stuff into Ukraine. We're going to put an embargo on Poland. That's not going to work out too well. But anyway, that was the statement from the Deputy Minister of Economy of Ukraine. Phillips University. I don't know this university. Looks nice though. Not bad. Come and study in Cyprus at Phillips University. All right, let's do a clown world. We'll wrap this video up. And this is an article from Reuters. US has no evidence Huawei can mass produce advanced smartphones. They're really coping hard with the whole microchip Huawei incident, aren't they? They are really in a panic with that development. And so now the collective West, the US, is saying that there's no evidence that Huawei will be able to mass produce advanced smartphones. I tweeted out this story, and I was like, I put in my tweet, what did I say? I said something like, yeah, China, there's no way that China can mass produce smartphones because China doesn't have the people, the technology, and the infrastructure to do such a thing. So yeah, there's no chance that China will be able to mass produce smartphones. And when I mean China, yes, I mean Huawei. There's Xiaomi, there's Huawei, but look, China is, in this Reuters article, they're talking about Huawei. But China is not going to let Huawei fail. They're not going to let it happen. And they are going to push for Huawei to be successful and for it to mass produce smartphones and to become and to remain a technology giant, because this is about national pride, especially given everything that the collective West has done to take Huawei out of the game, out of competition. So I mean, Huawei the company, China supporting Huawei, they're going to produce whatever smartphones they need to produce to stay competitive, and they're going to produce them at scale. That's the clown world, everybody. The Duran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. We are also on X, formerly known as Twitter. And go to the Duran shop, pick up a t-shirt, 10% off. Use the code Good Day. Take care.